did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green? And was the Holy Lamb of God?
First, we'll do a little recap of last week. Luckily, I have notes because I don't remember very well anything, and so I have the notes to recap. I don't even remember where I parked my car. When I park my car, usually I take my keychain here. And I go.
That's why you have notes.
You hear that? Can you hear that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's how I find my car usually. So last week we talked about why we're having this Bible study, which is to appreciate the fullness of the gospel by examining the culture of the day, exploring some of the elements of the language and the belief system of those especially opposed to the Messiah. And we're also going to highlight a lot of his life and ministry. My hidden agenda was to give the Gentile believers, whoever's on here, and also Jewish believers, a feel for the Jewish people, because I beggeth of you to share with the Jewish people, to love the Jewish people, to support Israel. We need you. I got saved through a Gentile Christian who was just a stranger that came up to me, and my birds drive me nuts. I'm going to kill him. Hold on a second. I got saved through a Gentile believer who just, came up to me and started reading me the Bible, Messianic prophecies, which we'll get into. And that very night I accepted the Lord because it was just so powerful, I thought. Hi, Jacob.
Hi, can you hear me too?
Yeah, I hear you too. Great, thanks for coming. Jacob, say hello to everybody. That's my brother, Jacob, my older brother. I bet now I really better do a good job.
Hello, Jacob.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure. I got my older brother here. So my hidden agenda is to give you an appreciation of the Jewish people. God has actually commissioned you Gentiles to provoke us to jealousy. And we need you, we need you, we need you. We need you to share with the Jewish people. I'll get on my knees and beg you. Yeah, I'm getting on my knees. And beg you to share it with the Jewish people. We want to learn some of the sensitivities that the Jewish people have about Jesus, because there's been a lot of stuff through history that happened. So there's a biblical mandate in Romans, basically, to share with the Jewish people and provoke them to jealousy. If that's not a good enough reason, Jesus says he won't come back until the Jewish people ask for him back. It says in Matthew 23, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who've been sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling. Behold, your house is left to you desolate. For I say to you, from now on, you will not see me until you say, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. So that's what we're waiting for. The Jewish people, the Bible says one day all Israel will be saved. And Jesus is not going to come back until the Jewish people ask for him back. And so that's another reason why we need you. You want to hasten the second coming? Hey, that's good motivation. Share with the Jewish people. Help us out. And there's some, examples of Paul, who is, hey, Howie, remind me who Paul was the apostle to? The Chinese people.
The Jewish people.
No, Howie, come on.
He seems to be going to the Gentiles an awful lot.
Yes, Paul was the apostle to the Gentiles. But if you look in Acts, every single time, before he even preaches to the Gentiles, he goes to the synagogues first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something else. And then, hey, Howie, how come you don't have your little setup? I like that little background you had last week.
Because I was in the basement on another computer, and this is like a real background.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I know this. It seems like it's fake back here, but
yeah, now I don't know what to believe. So also in Romans 1, it says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. And he says that, I'm not going to get into all of them, but he says that quite a bit. The point is that we're putting the Jew first. Does that mean that the Jewish people are better than the Gentiles? No. It just means that we have a mandate that we should be sharing with the Jewish people. It's important for them to get saved. Has Israel been rejected? Paul talks about Israel not being rejected in verse 11 of Romans. So don't let people. There's a lot of false doctrine out there that says the Jewish people are no longer a part of God's kingdom, that they've been replaced by the church. but it's just not true, because it says in Romans 11, I say then God has not rejected his people, has he? Far from it. Who's making noise? Far from it.
Me.
For I am too an Israelite, descendant of Abraham, tribe of Benjamin. God has not rejected his people from whom he foreknew. So we also talked about some of the persecution of the Christians of the church, against the Jewish people throughout centuries, including some of the Catholics, who basically the Cardinal Secretary of State Eugenio Pacelli, who became Pope Pius XII, made a pact with Hitler and kind of, negotiated an agreement with him to have a hands-off attitude about what's going on with the Jews and in general. And also the great Martin Luther had some terrible things to say about the Jewish people, to set fire to the synagogues and schools, to raise their houses, to burn their books, let them not be safe in the countryside. I mean, one thing after another. So it's not Catholics, it's not just Protestants. And why am I telling you this? Is it to make you feel guilty? No. Although I am an expert at guilt, because I am my mother's son, and I've been taught very well how to make people feel guilty, but that's not why I'm telling you this. It's that you would have a sensitivity and know where the Jewish people are coming from when they think of Christians. Basically, in their mind, Christians have been killing them for centuries, and we need to educate them and make the distinction between those Christians and who Jesus was himself. That if I kill somebody in the name of my friend Howard Rothbard, that it's not Howard's fault. And plus, there have been many, many righteous Gentiles. There have been many wonderful Christians who are Gentiles that saved us during the war. And, one of my heroes is Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who I didn't know much about, and I saw a documentary about him, and he was a great man. He was a preacher and a pastor, theologian, and he was very, very anti-Nazi, and he cared about the Jewish people, what was happening too, and he participated in a plot to kill Hitler. And as a result, him and the others were tried and executed. So there's a place in Israel called Yad Vashem. Howard, you were there, Yad Vashem, right? Howard's gone. There's a place.
Yes, I've been to Yad Vashem.
Thank you, Howard.
No problem. And what does Yad Vashem mean?
Why don't you tell us about Yad Vashem a little bit? Tell us what it is.
Well, the only reason why I said that is the last time I was on a bus on a tour guide, the tour guide goes, yeah, and that's Yad Vashem on the left. That doesn't mean anything. Yad Vashem literally means a place and a name for all. That's what the synagogue means. I know Yad means hand, but a place and a name because all of these fallen soldiers basically had no place or any remembrance of them. So is there national? It's like our Arlington National Cemetery. And as Michael says, although it is dedicated to the Jewish people, there are various areas that are dedicated specifically to the righteous Gentiles that basically gave their lives, if not their fortunes, if not everything that they had, to help Jewish people, whether that is Schindler, Bonhoeffer, and all of these righteous men.
That's Bonhoeffer, who said, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. He was an amazing person, and I'm very appreciative of him. And I know that he's, has a great place in heaven right now, that he's with the Lord in a really high place. So it's not like I'm coming down on the Gentiles at all. I'm just trying to tell you that, this is what the average Jewish person thinks, that, like my mother thinks the Nazis were Christians. I mean, if you asked her, that's what she would say. So I'm just telling you that when you share with Jewish people, just to be sensitive to their history and know, and to make the distinction between those who follow Christ and Christ himself. And even to, you see, I just said Christ, but you know what? Even to use sensitivity about that, even the language you use, like instead of calling him Christ, call him Messiah, because they don't even know what Christ means. And Christ is the Greek word for the Jewish concept of the Messiah, the anointed one. So when people say Jesus Christ, what they're actually saying is Jesus the Messiah. So when you're sharing with a Jew and you say Jesus Christ, he doesn't know what you're talking about. He just thinks that that's his last name. Joseph and Mary Christ would like to announce the birth of their son, Jesus Christ. So it's important that if you say Jesus the Messiah, they'll be like, oh, Messiah. And then you say, yeah, he's the Messiah. He's the Jewish Messiah.
Michael,
Yes.
may I interject something about Catholicism and the view of the
Yes,
Jewish people?
of course.
Catholicism is a false religion. They claim to be Christian, but they're not. And I spend a lot of time telling Jewish people they want to talk about Catholicism and how you murdered us. And I try to point out to them that Catholicism does not follow the true Bible, the Jewish Bible. They have their own Bible, and they are not true Christians. And in those times, with all the massacres, there were groups of true Christians like the Waldenses and other groups. So I have to point out that even though they have the title of Christian, they are not true Christianity or a Christian religion. And that discussion seems to always come first.
I understand. And I totally agree with that. But, the Protestants too, like Martin Luther was no great lover of the Jewish people either, And again, it's not that I'm coming down on, I want to just stress that I'm not coming down on Gentiles. It's not because of that. It's the reason I'm talking about this even is just so you'll have a sensitivity of knowing the background that the Jewish people, knowing their history so that you'll be sensitive to it and kind of like, Paul says, let's read this and I'll read this to you. 1 Corinthians 9. Though I am free and belong to no one, I've made myself a slave to everyone to win as many people as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law. Though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law. Though I am not free from God's law, but I am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak, I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessing. Paul's saying I become all things to all people. That's why I'm saying that we should share with the Jewish people with a Jewish sensibility, knowing their background, just having some empathy with them and sympathy with them and understanding their arguments. But listen, there's a remnant. Me, I'm a believer. Howard's a Jewish believer, my brother. We go to Messianic congregations full of them. And there's a great thing happening in Israel right now with young people getting saved. So there's some amazing things happening too. The other thing I talked about is supporting Israel. Don't believe the lies that are perpetrated in the media about Israel being an apartheid state. It's not true. There are Palestinian and Arab judges and lawyers, and they're in the parliament. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. All right, let's move on here. One moment, please.
You know where you find, Mike, you know where you find Arab women doctors in the Mideast?
Where? In Israel.
In Israel. You don't find them in Arab countries.
Exactly. I know. And it's like the media is unbelievable, like during the last war the war against Hamas, which was in Gaza, the media reported that Israel was bombing hospitals. What really happened was Hamas was shooting rockets out of hospitals using real people as human shields, and the Israelis had to go in and weed them out. So, but you don't hear that part of the story. So just keep an eye out for Israel and pray for the peace of Jerusalem, the Bible says, and don't believe all the hype that you hear, Not only that, but they found rockets in a hospital, and the UN actually gave them back to Hamas. There was a report about that. Anyway, so now that we've spent 20 minutes recapping last week, and now we're almost finished with this week. No, I'm just kidding. But now I want to start getting into the Messianic prophecies. So if somebody who would like to read, let's see, how about if I pick on, how about Doug?
What do you got?
I got Isaiah 52:13, and then we're going to go into Isaiah 53, but we'll read Isaiah 52:13 through 15. We'll talk about the prophecies and the interpretation of the Pharisees and also the rabbis of today.
Here you
Whenever
go.
you're ready. Yeah. Isaiah 52:13, starting from 13.
You want me to start with verse 12?
No, start with behold, my servant will prosper, 13.
Oh, 52. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Take your time. Take your time, but hurry up. No, I'm only kidding.
See,
so
my
far-
servant will act wisely. He will be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. Just as there were many who were appalled at him, his appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any man, and his form marred beyond human likeness. So will he sprinkle many nations, and kings will shut their mouths because of him. For what they were not told, they will see, and what they have not heard, they will understand. Want to keep going?
No, that's the beginning of the passage that, that we call Isaiah 53, even though this is starts in the end of Isaiah 52. It's about somebody called the suffering servant, and we'll get to that more in a minute. But hey, Doug, what version of the Bible are you reading?
That was New International Version.
Yeah,
An
because
older version of New International.
the NAS says, behold, my servant will prosper, who will be high and lifted up, greatly exalted, just as many as were astonished at you, my people. So his appearance is more than any men. And first of all, my people is not in the original text, although that's who he's referring to, that's who he's speaking to. And the word astonished, sometimes it says astonished, sometimes it says appalled. And that, I've looked into that, and it leans more toward appalled. And that was at his the way he looked after he was beaten and everything. And obviously this is about Jesus. I mean, I'm not, it's not not a mystery, but we'll get to that in a minute too. Yeah, so like I said, just as many as were astonished at you. So who's the you? Who's this Isaiah talking to? The Danish people, the Swiss? No, it's the Jewish people. So
Right.
his appearance.
It's you, yes, it's you plural, right? It's you plural, you guys.
I didn't know that. Is that right?
Is it use?
Use.
You.
North Jerseyism.
No, that's Brooklyn.
No, that's
Use.
Brooklyn.
Oh, that's-
Hey, Brooklyn.
Migrated to North Jersey.
Exactly.
Hey, what makes you say that it's plural, the you there?
I'm gonna look it up right now.
In Hebrew, it's you. I didn't know that's plural. Anyway, let's move on. But get back to me on that.
Remember,
So-
that's a significant point in another passage, but I can't remember where. Anyway,
So his appearance was marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. Being marred, that means he was so disfigured by the torturous treatment that was inflicted by him by the Romans, the whipping, the scourging of those whips where they put glass and metal shavings at the ends of the whips and just like tore through flesh. And then it says in 15, thus he will sprinkle many nations. The connotation of sprinkle is, if you look in Leviticus, which we'll get to a little later, God commanded it to, in order to atone for our sins, to sprinkle the blood of animals onto the altar. And that's the same word used here, that he will sprinkle many nations. In other words, his death will be an atonement. And kings will shut their mouths on account of him. For what they have not been told, they will see. What they have not heard, they will understand. Okay, so Doug, why don't you continue and start reading? We'll start reading Isaiah 53.
who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had nor beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering, like one from whom men hide their faces. He was despised and we esteemed him not. Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. Yet we considered him stricken by God, smitten by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away, and who can speak of his descendants? For he was cut off from the land of the living. For that transgression of my people he was stricken. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. And though the Lord makes his life a guilt offering, he will see his offspring and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. After the suffering of his soul, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. By his knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death and was numbered with the transgressors. For he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors.
This was written 600 years before the arrival of Jesus on the scene. For anyone to not see this as Jesus, I mean, I think it's obvious. When I got saved, these Gentile believers were just sharing with me like all these things in the Bible, all these Messianic prophecies, and they spent about 2 hours with me. And when I read this, it was like, that's Jesus, it was like so obvious. And then I accepted the Lord. And then when I came home, I expected all my friends, I expected to just read it to my friends and that they would all get saved and they would accept the Lord too. But it says in Isaiah 6 that the Jewish people will be blinded and their ears will be dull. It says in Isaiah 6:9, he said, go and tell this people, keep on listening, but do not understand. Keep on looking, but do not gain knowledge. Make the hearts of this people insensitive, their ears dull, their eyes blind, so they will not see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and return and be healed. And then in Isaiah 29:9, it says, be delayed and horrified, blind yourselves and be blind. They become drunk, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with intoxicating drink. So there's a blindness upon the Jewish people. And, it's a shame, but, many people get saved and you can't give up on them and you just have to keep sharing with them. So anyway, if everyone believed that Isaiah 53 was about Jesus, then everybody would be believers. But the Jewish people of today do not believe that this is about Jesus, obviously. And the common interpretation today is that this is about the Jewish people themselves, that they are the suffering servant. But if you look, I'm sorry? Sorry? Hi,
Nothing,
Lori.
Michael.
Hi,
Nothing,
Lori.
Michael, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Michael.
Hi, Lori.
Hello.
I'm muting this so you don't get disturbed. I apologize, Michael.
That's okay. So obviously the Jewish people do not believe that this is about Jesus. And what they say that it's about the Jewish people themselves, that they are the suffering servant. But it makes no sense because it says here that this suffering servant died as a guilt offering. And although the Jewish people have suffered terribly, they never died as a guilt offering. And also it says, hang on, let me see if I can find this. Hold on. La, 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 la. It says, he was taken away from rule and from judgment, and his life who shall recount? For he was cut off out of the land of the living, through the transgressions of my people was he stricken. So you got like, look at the pronouns. It's just Isaiah 53 could not be about the Jewish people. It's about one individual, and that individual is Jesus. And so there you have it. So now everyone believe, okay? So that's it. I give up. So, however, there are other points of view about what this passage is about. There are actually some people who believe that it is a messianic prophecy. And by the way, this was always known as a messianic prophecy throughout the ages. And I can show you some things right here. Hold on. In the rabbinical writings. One moment, please. One moment, please. Let me share my screen. La, la, la. Mm-hmm. Can you see that on the screen?
Yep.
Maimonides, who is a very, very famous rabbi, knew that this was a messianic prophecy and said about this passage, Messiah, the son of Ephraim, will die there, and Israel will mourn for him. He's a huge, huge rabbi, and he's still studied today. They still study him today. I mean, he's a legend. And elsewhere in the rabbinical writings, it talks about that this passage is about the Messiah. Bear the suffering and punishment of thy Lord, with which he chastises thee for the sins of Israel, as it is written, he is pressed for our rebellion, crushed for our iniquities until the end comes. That's Midrash Cohen. In another passage in the Midrash, it says, there Jonathan interprets, behold the man Messiah, and as is said, a man of pains and known to sickness. So again, they knew that this is, and what happened was there is a rabbi named Rashi, and if you could see him, that's Rashi right there. He changed the interpretation. This is like during the Middle Ages. First of all, there was a lot of persecution against the Jewish people. There were debates going on about these things between Jews and Christians about these verses. And, I hate to say, like, what happens when you lose the debate? I mean, they were just like really like, it was just a really, really anti-Semitic time. So Rashi is the one who really changed the interpretation to say that it's about the Jewish people, but that was never the prevalent view. Let's move on. Now I want to show you a clip. This is with, this is another interpretation. Hang on a second, sorry. I just got to do one thing, sorry. There's another interpretation now, which is that, let me just do something 1 second, share screen, share sound. Yeah, another interpretation is that it is about the Jewish people, it is about the Messiah, that the Messiah is the suffering servant. However, it's not Jesus. And actually, when you saw Maimonides is from the Middle Ages, so that's kind of like what he believed too. I just went to a doctor's appointment recently. My doctor was an Orthodox Jew, and I always share with him, and I shared with him about Isaiah 53, and he said the same thing, that yes, it's a Messiah, but no, it's not Jesus. No, it's someone that we reject. He'll die for the sins of the people. His death will be a guilt offering, but it's not Jesus. It's going to be somebody else. So that's what they believe. Now I'm going to show you a clip.
Various midrashim, various commentaries recognize
1 second.
that this was a messianic passage. It was Rashi who changed the interpretation of Isaiah 53.
One moment, please.
Prior to.
One moment, please. Just bear with me 1 second. I just got to find the right place.
Various midrashim, various.
I did a documentary. It's called We Being Many, the Jewish People. Hold on a second, I'm sorry. We Being Many, the Jewish people in Jesus, who believe in Jesus. And I interviewed Jonathan Cahn. Jonathan Cahn, I'm sure you know, he's a best-selling author of The Harbinger.
Daniel and Isaiah. Why then?
And, he's a controversial figure. He's a good friend of mine, and I love him. He's a controversial figure, whatever you think of Jonathan Cahn. But I just want you to see this clip, which is a radio show that he had called The Two Nice Jewish Boys. The other guy's name is Gary Selman. and he went on to be with the Lord. And they got a caller for an Orthodox Jew. They keep on like getting, keep on speaking to an Orthodox Jew. And this particular person also believes that it's that Isaiah 53 is about the Messiah, but it's not Jesus. So I want to just show you this clip. One moment. Do you see Jonathan Kahn on the screen?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Good. Let me know if you hear this too, please.
Jewish town. He was called Yeshua, which means God is salvation. He fulfilled the prophecies spoken of Daniel and Isaiah. Why then do the rabbis even say that we, Israel, will reject, Messiah will be rejected by us? Why is that in the rabbinical writings that he will be rejected?
It says that we will look away from him. We didn't esteem him. We didn't understand.
So that's
what
not
it's all
rejection.
about.
That's acceptance. You spoke about Isaiah 53, and you said it was speaking about not Israel, but about the Messiah.
There is mention that it's talking. That's an opinion of some of the rabbis.
Whoa! You just said, we just spoke, and that it's speaking about us, Israel, and the Messiah. It's the Messiah.
There is an opinion in the Talmud that it's talking about.
Joseph, but all those arguments that it wasn't the Messiah, and now right here you come on and say that it is the Messiah.
Well, that's an opinion.
Joseph, let me ask you a question. What do you think about this? You ready for this? I'm just going to throw this out. Take a real chance with this. You ready? You really need Jesus. You need to come to know the Lord. You need to be saved. You need to find peace. He is the truth. I want you to pray this week and ask God if Jesus is the Son of God.
Gary, give me one proof.
Again, 18 years.
Starting with Isaiah 53, which tonight you astounded us by saying this is indeed the Messiah.
Well,
and it clearly, if that is, that means that Messiah has to be one whom we overlook at best and who we reject at worst and who dies for our sins. So the fact that the majority didn't accept Messiah, Jesus, is not a proof against it. If they did, we couldn't accept him.
Let's go back and what makes something history and what makes something a fairy tale, which you want to believe or you don't want to believe. Truth is when the people around them accept it.
I don't believe
No,
Are
Joseph.
you serious?
Where in the Bible does it say truth is by majority rule? How about Judges, where it says that everyone did what was right in their own way? The entire nation of Israel is doing what nobody was following the Lord. I thought. Now, does that mean that the Lord isn't true anymore because the majority of Israel? What if most Jewish people don't believe and are not observant? You know that most Jewish people are not observant. So does that mean that it's not true?
It doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter anymore now. So it's the majority of people who accepted of the Jewish people not at the time because they rejected, and then not now. It doesn't matter anymore. So what is truth now?
Your faith is based upon what most of the Jewish people believe in. Jonathan I's faith is based upon the fact that Jesus is the truth. He died for our sins. He rose from the dead. We hope that every Jewish person believes. But if not another Jewish person in the world believes, we're still going to stand on that faith because we believe it. It has nothing to do with most of the people.
Because truth is not truth by majority rule. Truth is truth because God is truth, and then whether they believe or not. Most people didn't believe Isaiah. Most people didn't believe Jeremiah. Most people didn't believe most of the prophets at the time.
While Joshua was standing at the bottom of that mountain by faith, waiting for Moses to come down, most of the people were hanging around playing with that golden calf.
Did that make it right? Joseph, we got to go. Say goodbye to everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Joseph.
Bye.
God bless you. We do love you.
Ladies and
We do love you. Bye-bye.
Michael,
Yeah.
there's a comeback to when they say that. It's in Daniel 9:26.
Mother's real name was Miriam.
I'm sorry. Yeah. What is that? You want to read it?
Yeah.
Sure.
It says that Messiah will come at a specific time. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off.
Oh, yeah.
For himself.
That's Daniel 9. Daniel 9.
9:26. And it's stating Messiah to come and be cut off before the destruction of the second temple, which was destroyed by the Roman Titus in CE 70.
Yeah,
So
I'm actually going to cover. We're going to cover that. I'm going to have a guest speaker speak about that. So I don't want to give it all away. We're all going to get to that. But
Okay, I'm glad I didn't make my comment on Daniel chapter 9 then.
that's okay. I don't mind. But the thing I like about that clip is how much love they have for him. Like that they don't, they're just so like sweet with him, even though like they don't agree and stuff like that. But you can see that like how you could just really see how blind, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's just true how blind he is and how dull his ears are, that he would believe that, yes, that the Messiah would die for our sins, he would be rejected, but it's not Jesus. It's a sad, it's really a sad thing. And the other thing of what he mentioned, which is that about the majority rules, that most of the people, my mother says the same things,
Every
about
man did that which was right in his own eyes.
right. My mother, when my brother and I became believers, my mother would say the same thing.
What
They're
does the
like,
rabbi say? Don't
right.
think for yourself. Just go with the crowd. Don't get us upset. What if the congregation finds out that you believe this Mishigas? They're not going to invite us over after Shabbat to have the dinner together,
And Howard, were you there? I don't remember you being there. That's amazing.
Michael, if I wasn't there, I had the same situation by the same spirit acted out by a different person.
I know. Well, my mother would say, oh, you got thousands of rabbis who interpret this one way.
Are you telling me they're all wrong?
Right, but you and your brother are so smart.
That's right.
And as a matter of fact, I guess me and my brother, we're not smart. We're just fortunate, actually. We're just,
So show me an example in the past when the majority was correct.
Right. God always prepared a remnant, that's the thing. But I'll tell you one thing that, I don't know, my brother can speak for himself. He's on mute right now, but
I don't know if he can speak for himself. He hasn't said a word.
He's busy. Everybody's so busy.
Thank you.
The thing I wanted to say also is that, for me, I always believed in God. And during high school, my friends were getting into Buddhism, and I started reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Man, what a boring book, I gotta tell you. What a book. The Tibetan Book of the Dead. If you could just imagine. And they were all going around saying nothing is real, nothing is real. And these are like upper middle class kids who live in Manhattan, that we used to hang out in the city. I went to high school in the city. And these are the kids who are saying nothing's real. Now I would just think to myself, yeah, easy for you to say, like, go to Africa and speak to a child who hasn't eaten in 2 weeks and tell them that nothing is real. So I got really turned off by that, and then I just, kind of like got depressed, and I just started to pray to God. I said, God, there's so many like different religions, so many different ways to think and whatever. Please show me the truth. And I believe that God honored that.
Good prayer.
Yeah, and I believe that God honored that. But my point is that when I share with people, now I say the same thing to them. I say, look, don't take my word for it, I mean, please take my word for it if you would, but pray about it and ask God to really show you the truth. And if I really believe that if they pray that sincerely, that God will show them the truth. So anyway, just to get back to Isaiah 53, another theory that people had, because they saw like two different descriptions of the Messiah. One was the reigning king, which they called, the reigning king, which was a descendant of David. And the other one was a suffering servant who would die and, die for his people. Some of them thought he would die in the Battle of Armageddon. But the point is, because there was two different descriptions, in some of the rabbinical writings, like the Targums, they came up with a theory that there would be two messiahs, not just one. And one they called Messiah, son of David, like the king, and the other they called son of Joseph. Doug, you actually knew about that, so that's interesting. You want to comment on that at all?
Sure. I mean, that was the prevailing concept in Jesus' day. They were looking for a political deliverer. They had been so oppressed, obviously, throughout all their history. And there's so many, which would you choose if you're reading scriptures? Something to press about your hero dying or something about him vanquishing all your enemies? There are so many scriptures about both. So it was very hard to rectify the two. And even his disciples, even up to the moment of his death and sometimes after, kept expecting that reigning Messiah, son of David, to manifest itself. Eventually, I think they got the picture.
Eventually.
But yeah, that was the preset, the misconception that people had.
Yeah, that he would come and that he would overthrow Rome and set up his kingdom immediately. That's what they were expecting. And not only the disciples, but even John the Baptist, when he was in jail, he sent his own disciples, a couple of them, to Jesus to say, hey, what's the story? Are you really the Messiah or not? You know, and that's because he was languishing in jail. And I think he also expected Jesus to overthrow Rome and, you know, and so that he could be free. So there are many, many different theories, but obviously it's about Jesus. I mean, you know, I think it's very, very clear. And there's so many rabbinical writings that also cover that too. Since it's like 10 to 11, I think we're going to end here for today. I want to thank everybody for coming. I hope you come next week. Does anybody have any comments or anything to say?
Great job, Michael.
Oh, that's so kind of
That's
you. That's nice
excellent.
of you to say. Thank you. Howard,
Good.
how about a last word from you?
I don't know if I can say great job, Michael. I know you too much, but kidding around. No, seriously, thank you for your efforts.
No, I'm not looking for that. I'm not looking for that.
It's
No.
okay. I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate the time. I appreciate joining with you guys. It's a very encouraging time for me.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, do you have any like thing to say about the text that we're reading?
I have lots of things to say about the text that we're reading, but we're not going to go into that in the depth of what we're doing right now.
All right. Well, then next time. Stay
I'll say
tuned.
something.
Oh, please. Yeah.
I'm looking forward, because obviously, you know, Matthew details 47 specific prophecies that Jesus fulfilled, and there were many more. It's just that Matthew specifically detailed those. So those are, I would expect, a coming attraction, and we should, some of those are so specific that it's ridiculous that, you know, how does one person even fulfill one of those to such detail?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna cover that. I promise. And anyway, everybody, I want to just thank you for coming. I hope you come again next week. Please pray for the Jewish people. Please, you know, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for Israel, and share with us. Give us a break. We need you. We need you. We need you. You know, I'm not going to start preaching, but if we're not in the end times now, boy, it's coming soon. I'm telling you, we could just, I think we all know that. So please love us, love us, love us. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you next week. I really appreciate you coming. Bye-bye now.
Bye, Mike. Love you, man.
Love you too, buddy. Bye-bye.